I saw a documentary many years ago, and it's really stuck with me. And it's by Mark Felton. He has many videos now. His channel is called Mark Felton Productions. I'll put the link to this video below, and it was just basically an audio book, just his audio with some slides that he would show. And it's about the HMS Amethyst. And so what happened, best I can remember, is it was about like 1948, 49. So it's after World War II, right? So before World War II, Britain, right, was a huge nation, right? I mean, they were definitely getting past their colonial powers, but I think people still would have said, even after World War II, that the UK was still had a huge navy, was still, in control of a lot of the world, a superpower. So China was in a war. Actually, it has to do with Taiwan even, and they're in a war where they had one side was fighting the other side, and the British were plying their warships up and down the Yangtze River. So they were, I think it's Yangtze to, I forget where, the other end of the river. But anyway, so the warship, the HMS Amethyst, was coming down the river, and one of the Chinese sides in their civil war started firing on the ship, and they basically, it ran aground. So I don't know if they would have, if the ship didn't run aground, it probably could have escaped. But whatever, the Chinese got lucky with these pot shots, and they basically marooned the ship. And then once the ship was marooned, it tried to go through diplomatic channels to this Chinese, to the Chinese that shot at them to let them go. But of course, each side was across the river and fighting each other. So neither side wanted to let the ship go. And the one side that shot it, that guy was probably like, yeah, I basically disabled, a British warship. And so, yeah, I just like to stay there for a long time to show how capable I am. And then the British sent down other warships to rescue it. And they too got fired on, and they too either almost got stuck or got very damaged. So it's just like a horrible thing. And it went on for months. And eventually in the middle of the night, the ship got free of the sandbar and was able to make it down the river. But what really struck with me in this story is in my opinion, that was the end of the British Empire for sure. I mean, you could have said, I think, and I bet people did say back then, that this is the end already, and nobody would believe them. It really took this sort of thing. And again, this wasn't like a planned thing, right? It wasn't that like the Chinese side that started shelling the ship, that they had some plan to attack the ship when it came down the river. I think they might have attacked it because they thought it was a Chinese ship. I mean, you have to go watch the documentary. So it was just like a fluke of nature in a sense. Just the ship was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then just, perfect storm, and that was that. And then it just exposed how weak the Royal Navy was at the time. And so I think that is exactly what's going to happen to the United States. And I felt this right when I watched that documentary. I was like, this is going to happen to us. I mean, we're in the exact same state. We have a very overextended Navy, and we don't really, other countries have caught up, and they're strong enough. And that was, I think, the British, what they really missed back then is they didn't think that the Chinese would ever threaten them. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they had this idea that they still won World War II, and China could barely, fend off Japan, right? I mean, it was very close that Japan was basically going to take off China. So nobody had any respect for China. Like Britain had an overconfidence in their own navy, and they underestimated the Chinese. And again, all these things played in. And I see the same thing happening today. So when you look at, Trump going to Saudi Arabia and doing a deal with Russia for Ukraine, he has no power. Like Trump and none of these politicians or people that he's put into all these cabinet positions and these, all the people that surround him, and then all the Democrats too. It's the same thing. This isn't like a specifically political issue, but Americans they overestimate their military power and they underestimate everybody else, just like Britain. So it's just a matter of time. So Trump, when he goes to these meetings, He has like World War II in his head, like, we're the biggest Navy, because he is that stupid. Not stupid, but he is that uneducated. He's been uneducated his whole life. He doesn't know anything. And all he does is he repeats things that people say to him, and then he sounds smart, but he doesn't know it himself. When he said, 6, 8 years ago, whatever, Europe isn't paying enough for NATO, that's not because he did his research and he was like, oh, you only pay 2%. No, somebody in the State Department, the Pentagon told it to him, and, they got him excited. And just like a slick salesman, he went out and he sold that idea and it worked. He was so happy that, oh my God, everybody's paying attention to me. Everybody thinks I'm a genius because I'm pointing out what nobody else is saying, that Europe only pays 2%. And he's been repeating it now, and they repeat it even today, right? When J.D. Vance goes over and says, you're not paying enough for your military. No, Europe is paying enough now. But it doesn't make a difference, right? I mean, the point I'm making is that the government, Democrats, Republicans, Trump, they all believe that the U.S. Navy can go, whatever. When people like me would say to them, hey, listen, look in Afghanistan, we couldn't even, when we started to retreat into Kabul, like the Taliban just came right into the city. They're not scared of us. Nobody is scared of us. So in Taliban, we basically, like the last Marine, had to run to jump on the plane like in a movie to get out of there. I mean, is that a strong country? And then when the Houthis were firing at these ships in the Red Sea, and you had Operation Guardian, whatever, I forget what it's called, did they stop it? No. So, I mean, you have to look at the hard facts. The U.S. Navy cannot keep the sea lanes open in the Red Sea. They cannot stop the Chinese from harassing Vietnamese and Filipino fishing boats and everything like that. China controls the whole South China Seas, and there's nothing the U.S. can do about it anymore. The U.S. can't control, the Red Seas. The U.S. can't control anything. And then you look at the Ukraine war, right? I mean, the U.S. gave these weapons, and why does anybody think that if the U.S. did put boots on the ground that they could kick Russia out? So the weird thing is that Putin is right about something, and I think he's going to be even more right, even though, again, I can't stand him, and the whole thing is horrifying to me. But he's right in that, Putin is right in that it's not about opinions. Like once you exercise military power, once you start shooting at somebody, it doesn't make a difference about what your opinion is. It doesn't make a difference how many wars you won or battles you won. It doesn't make a difference if you have, 12 aircraft carriers or 100. The only thing that makes a difference is when you have that conflict, whether you can push the other guy out. And the U.S. could not push the Taliban out of Afghanistan. And you can say, well, they didn't really try really hard. Well, I think they did. And Iraq, yeah, they got rid of Hussein, but does the U.S. control Iraq now anymore? No, Iraq is basically friendly to Iran. So the U.S. couldn't do that. And then we have the Red Seas. Could the U.S., stop the Houthis? They're running around in sandals with these homemade missiles. Could stop them from? No. It's all there. The facts are all there. There's nothing like, the only thing is that it's a psychological thing, right? I mean, people think that, the United States can do it. Everybody's running around. But if you look at it like I do and others look at it, you can see the simple truth. It's right there. You can read, these papers from these think tanks that say all the same thing. Like, if China tries to take Taiwan, can the U.S. prevent it? No. How many days until the U.S. is in real trouble? Like, I don't know, like a few days. Because the U.S. has no merchant marine fleet. Like, they just go cheap on it all the time. And just like, Britain after World War II, they just didn't have the money to build their battleship, their navy. And in fact, one of the recent videos that Mark Felton did was the fact now that the UK has 53 admirals and 27 fighting ships. Think about that. 53 admirals and 27 fighting ships. But just even 27 fighting ships. Like, they have other ships that support ships and whatever. But just, ships with guns on them and helicopters and planes and whatever. 27. And the aircraft carriers they have F-35s on them. They have our planes. They don't even have their own planes. They can't even afford to build their own planes. So the UK is like tremendously, tremendously weak right now. I mean, they can't fight anyone, really. I mean, France is a lot stronger because I don't want to get into the weeds here. Let's keep this video focused on this one thing that I predict. Well, that's very possible that, again, something's going to happen. One of the U.S. Navy ships is going to get sunk. It's going to get super badly damaged, and it's going to be obvious. And then the United States, the Trump is going to be like, oh, send these other ships, and we're going to go, rescue them. Not that he would say it, the Navy would do it. But then it's just going to get worse and worse. So something would happen with some, I think, U.S. Navy asset. Then the U.S. will try and use its power to rescue it or to settle the score or whatever, and it's become obvious that the U.S. no longer controls the sea, that the U.S. has no power. When Trump goes to talk to Putin, it's really like, is the U.S. more powerful than Russia? Absolutely. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying it's not what he thinks it is. It's not like he's going there and Putin is saying, oh my God, I don't really want them to attack. Because many people are telling him like, hey, it's not a foregone conclusion that the U.S. uses its Navy, that they're going to win against China, right? So that's really going to be the thing. Because again, the China has a huge Navy too. They're both battling over the South China Seas, and the U.S. could get and fight with somebody else. I mean, who knows? But even with Russia's debilitated Navy, and they do have a debilitated Navy, we don't know if with fighter planes and missiles, especially missiles from Iran, because Iran, basically for 20, 30 years, focusing on missiles that take out aircraft carriers, focusing on using boats to take out U.S. warships. Think about that. Iran has been basically preparing their whole life to deal with the U.S. Navy because that is their most immediate threat. And now Iran is giving weapons to Russia. So I don't know how this can play out. Again, I'll just end the video where I'm having 12 minutes. I think that's enough. Is definitely go watch those two videos, the audio books about the HMS Amethyst, the Yangtze incident, and look at that and look at our Navy, and you tell me whether you think that if the U.S. Navy has this battleship going up some river or something like this, even recently, right? The HMS Ford or whatever, that the aircraft carrier, it hit another ship, right? Because it had to go through the Suez Canal, and it has to be close to ships. It can't get them all away. Like when it's out in the sea, it can basically, cordon itself off. It can't do that. So if that ship that hit it, last week or whatever, was filled with, fertilizer and bombs, it might have sunk the aircraft carrier. Think about that. How exposed U.S. aircraft carriers are when they go in and out of the Suez Canal or any of these, these places. It's so anyway, that's my opinion, and I'll talk to you later.